3. Well, hello and welcome to our Zoom education session on the impact of stress on cognition and mood. My name is Sarah Cook and I'm the Public Education Coordinator at the Alzheimer's Society of Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes, Northumberland, and Haliburton. And today we have with us Anne-Marie Peters, who is our social worker with our First Link program at the Alzheimer's Society. And Anne is going to share her presentation with us today. So I'm really excited about the information that she's about to share. And please feel free to ask questions as we go. You can enter those into the chat pod and we'll do our best to get those questions answered for you. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Anne-Marie Peters. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Sarah. So welcome and thank you for attending this session on the impact of stress on cognition and mood. Today, we're going to talk about how the brain responds to stress and why, the stress response's impact on body, mood, and cognition, the normal stress response, and chronic stress. And I'm going to tell you about a couple of strategies to deactivate the chronic stress response. So, as a species, one of our instincts is survival, because in early times, life was simple but scary, and people didn't live that long. Early humans focused on finding shelter, food, surviving the elements, propagating the species, and not being eaten or killed. So they had to, flee scary animals. They had to live in conditions that we currently don't now. So now we still have that survival instinct along with our extraordinary brain capacity. And this instinct that our previous ancestors had still exists, which is quite remarkable. Now, the three strategies of the survival instinct are creating separations in order to form boundaries between ourselves and the world, maintaining stability to keep our physical and our mental states in a healthy balance, and to approach opportunities and avoid threats in order to gain things and promote our offspring and to escape or resist harm. So we have the capacity with our evolved brains as well to think about the past and the future and want for things that may not be reasonable. Like, say, for example, I decide I want to have a bikini body, which I never had and I never will. But back with our ancestors, they really only worried about shelter, food, and survival. So, and when we look at our threats, we can't avoid them all. And we also have the capacity to perceive threats that are not necessarily real threats, okay? So the challenge is, the great thing about this instinct is that it is all subconscious. And this instinct, our survival instinct and our behavior of approaching correctly and avoiding correctly uses the same brain processes as a monkey looking for a banana or a lizard choosing to hide under a rock for protection. So for example, if you're walking down a path and you see something, your brain within seconds is using several areas to decide if that stick is a snake or just a stick. And so your body goes into a little bit of, oh, wait, what is it? And will literally assess and be ready to respond just in case it is a snake and you need to get out of the way and avoid the threat. So it's pretty remarkable that our body can do this. So here's the dilemma though. with this instinct that we have carried forward. Many things in our world are connected. Everything keeps changing. Opportunities routinely remain unfulfilled or lose their appeal, and many threats are inescapable, like aging and death. We are dependent on each other, for example, children and the frail on caregivers, as we are social beings. We couldn't survive without each other. So we can't remain separate from our world and other people. We couldn't completely exist independently. Change is a part of the human condition. We get older, unfortunately. Our environment, there's constant changes. The weather is a great example. You know, today it's going to be lovely for a little while, then it's going to get hot, and then we're going to have a storm. The other aspect, and I read ahead, we have the capacity with our evolved brains to think about things that our ancestors didn't. We can dwell on the past, we can think about the future, and we can, again, want for things that aren't reasonable. You know, we can want to be rich, we can want to do things that may not be feasible. And we cannot avoid all threats. And again, as I said before, we can perceive threats that aren't real. Okay, so you think of it of a child who thinks there's a monster in the closet. Okay, and we open the closet, we move the clothes, see it's not there, but the child still carries that fear that there's something there. The other dilemma is that the survival instinct relies on our brain avoiding threats more than approaching opportunities. So we will avoid things more than we will actually try for things. This leads to a negative bias in our thoughts and perceptions. Our survival instinct is always active on the subconscious level, scanning the environment for risks and threats. This remains today as a function of our brain in the form of vigilance and a low-level anxiety that you are not even aware of. So that when a threat appears, our brain can respond within milliseconds. So say, for example, you're in a parking lot and you all of a sudden see a car move, your body will automatically jump back to avoid being hit. That's how precise this instinct is and our body responses. Our brain is able to detect negative information faster than positive. Our brain will make this negative information a high priority and store it in the hippocampus for future reference so that if we see that information again, we will respond automatically. It will allow the negative event to linger in the mind, which creates the vicious cycle of noticing and creating more negative experiencing and paying attention to more negative experiences. And then what can happen for us is we become pessimistic, overreactive, and inclined to go negative. So this is what causes stress and suffering. And we just have to turn on the news to kind of get a sense of what that feels like. So it is harder in general for our species to stay positive and easier to be negative. This instinct helped our species survive and thrive, which is why the negative bias and the survival instinct was passed on in our genetic makeup. So as you can see, here's the heart going, look at all this wonderful stuff. And the brain's going, wait, no, see, there's this little bad thing here. I'm busy. And that's exactly what our brain is designed to do. So when you tell people, oh, stop being negative, it's not that easy because we are actually designed to do this. Our brain is actually wired to do this, okay? So when we look at, here's a diagram of the stress curve showing us a range of levels of stress from low to dangerous. There is an optimal level of stress that is good to have, which motivates us to achieve goals and focus. Outside of that range, we are either going to underperform or we're going to become exhausted, develop anxiety, panic, get angry, and at some point break down. Again, not all stress is bad. In fact, our survival instinct and our ability to respond to threat is what helped our species survive and thrive. The other incredible part of the human body is that there is a counter to the stress response that brings the body back to balance and repairs any damage the threat event may have caused. I will talk more about this next when I review the stress response. Okay, so this is a really great slide. I don't want you to worry about how busy it is. I'm just going to talk you through it, okay? So, when we detect a threat, our amygdala, which is written in red, known as our internal alarm, sounds, and within seconds, a cascade of reactions in the brain and the sympathetic nervous system, okay, activate. And then this is what happens. There's a stress hormone that releases, and some of you may have heard of cortisol. It gets released and it activates all through through a system, and it releases all through the body and the brain. And that gets our heart racing and pumping faster. Okay, so our heartbeat goes up, our blood pressure goes up, our ventilation goes up, our pupils get bigger, we start sweating. And what happens is all the blood is drawn away from our extremities and goes to our core. Okay, so you'll notice your palms will get cold and clammy. And then we've heard of the fight, flight, fright response. Okay, the fright response is not ideal because if you freeze and the lion's standing there, you're going to get eaten. Okay, so we don't want that one. But if you have to run because there's the snake and you're scared, you want to run. Or you want to climb the tree, or you want to get out, or if there's a fire, you want to leave, okay? So then the hormone adrenaline gets released, and it increases our muscle strength and our sugar metabolism so that our body can move, and it can really move. So you've heard those stories of people who can lift cars and who can save people to crawl out from under, and who can have these incredible feats of strength. And this is where that comes from, because our body's going, we got to get out of danger. And so that's where the adrenaline comes in. But here's the icky part of the stress response, is the digestion shutdown. So if you've got something in your stomach, it's coming out. If you've got stuff in your bladder or your bowel, it might come out. So this is all what happens when you have a threat happen to you, and this is what your body does. It goes, okay, people, we gotta go. And it completely goes into action. Now, here's the problem though. The part of the brain that does not activate is the thinking part of the brain, called the prefrontal cortex, which does the following. It helps us with empathy. It helps us with insight. It helps us think of other responses that might be more effective. It helps us regulate our emotions. It helps us regulate our body. It helps us with morality, because sometimes we overreact and say and do things we shouldn't do. It helps us regulate our body. I already said that. It helps us with different types of communication that might be more effective. And it helps us manage our fear. Okay, so this is completely shut off. Now, when the threat is addressed, we have another system that balances out the sympathetic nervous system, which is called the parasympathetic nervous system. And it takes over and it returns the body back to a state of balance. So it says, okay, cortisol, we're done. We don't need you anymore. It says adrenaline, okay, we're fine. We're good. Everybody back. It says, okay, amygdala, easy. We're good. We're fine. The threat's over. And it reactivates the thinking part of our brain and says, okay, we're safe. We're fine. And we can go back to rest. So ideally, the way the system was initially set up, the way we want stress to the way we want our body to work is we want normally our parasympathetic system to be working most of the time to keep us at a baseline for like to be easygoing, peaceful, just kind of functioning. And then to have like that mild kind of sympathetic nervous system for when we're doing minds in motion, some enthusiasm, some vitality, have some wholesome passions, whatever that means. And then for those times when there's actual threats, we really spike that parasympathetic system to really respond. And, we pray that those spikes are not really awful spikes. So I ask you, are these events equally threatening? Our circumstances and the type of threats we face are different, and our survival instinct has not adjusted to the new human reality. We are no longer prey or as vulnerable to the environmental elements. Today, threats are not just physical, they are social, emotional, and psychological. Our earlier ancestors didn't worry about who was sleeping with who, what was going on in Hollywood, presidential elections. This was not politics. This was not happening. They were worrying about basic survival. But today, we have so many other stressors. And I want to point out to you, this is really important. Psychological pain draws on many of the same neural networks as physical pain. So it is really, really significant. So examples of stress events that we experience are relationships, jobs, caregiving, finances, parenting, chronic pain, illness. So our brain perceives those things as if we're about to get eaten by a lion. Okay, so when you see that stress response, it's the equivalent, but it's not. So I find that fascinating. I find that fascinating because it's not the same. So when stress becomes an ongoing issue in our lives, and there is no opportunity to get to the point of rest and relief, this is what we call chronic stress. This is when the stress response is never fully deactivated and the body and the brain remain on medium to high alert. This means that hormones of cortisol and adrenaline are coursing through our brain and body continuously. And this is not good. This is very bad, very, very bad. So when we look at this slide, we see the difference between a brain that is stressed and a brain that is not stressed. What you will notice is that when the thinking part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, is in control, there is tight control of thoughts, emotions, and actions. However, there's clearly weaker control of thoughts, emotions, and actions. Now, we can all recall moments when we've not entirely reacted to things as our best selves. So we've come home and something's happened and we've had an Oscar moment where we've been a little dramatic. And I have those moments. And then I realized I had a moment yesterday when I walked in to work and someone said something and I didn't listen, and my amygdala went, "What do you mean?" And I ended up having to apologize to my colleague. And it was simply just, and it was like, whoa, okay, easy. And I wasn't just, going, oh, relax, it's okay. So this is what happens when, we're a little stressed or really stressed. When our brain is stressed, this is what happens to our cognition. We have difficulty with attention, perception, short-term memory, learning, and word finding. The hormones released while under stress, and we talked about cortisol. The other one, I don't need you to worry about the name of it. I had to practice saying it because I'm not good at this one. Glucocorticoids, they actually affect the hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus is in charge of accessing memories and creating memories. So you know when you have, so remember a time when you were stressed and you had difficulty remembering something or thinking and wondered if something was wrong with you. You're like, why can't, you had a blank moment, like, I know this, but why can't I think of it? I remember being stressed in a philosophy exam and not being able to spell the word why. It's like, this is crazy. It was because I was stressed. It wasn't because I have a cognitive problem. It was because I was not able to access that. So we literally, when we have persistent stress, we're changing the cellular makeup of our brain. So even in the hippocampus, you know, there are cellular changes going on because these hormones are impacting that area of the brain. And so when we go blank and go, wait a second, I know my number, it's not because, you know, you have a permanent cognitive problem, it's because you're stressed. Okay. And that stress leads to sleep problems, poor nutrition, because we know what we do when we're stressed. We either eat too much or we don't eat. And then we have the emotional distress. So this is just a small list of health issues that can result from chronic stress. Physical issues can be temporary and lead to permanent health conditions, such as type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, irritable bowel syndrome, GERD, obesity. The list goes on. We talked about the impact of cognition, and the impact on mood is very important, as chronic stress can lead to depression, anxiety, and burnout. The impact of any of these realities is life-altering, to put it mildly. The more stressed we are, the more reactive we become to the environment, and we become less able to discern a real threat from a false alarm. Unfortunately, our survival instinct is ready to respond regardless. So the brain is trying to have a conversation with the amygdala saying, you know, we talked about this, no stress signals unless it's a real problem. And the amygdala is going, no, sorry, I'm just going to keep doing my job. So this is why it's really hard for us. And if we think that it's as simple of, I just have to stop being so stressed, I'm trying to tell you, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's really, it really was eye-opening to me to learn about this. And I really had a lot of empathy and compassion, because when I work with stressed people, I really recognize now more than ever how hard it is to shut that down. So let's go into more detail while our brains get caught into a loop with respect to chronic stress. I want to show you this picture so that you can see where in the brain these structures are located. And it's really interesting to see where they are. So I want you to note, and we've given them nicknames here, okay? Because it's more fun to give them nicknames. Where they are. So you see the amygdala here in blue, and we're going to call it the emoter because it generates that fear and stress response, okay? And we talked about the hippocampus, where memories are created and where we retrieve our memories from. And you notice that they're next door neighbors. So these two structures are in the limbic system, okay? So this is where a lot of our memory processes happen, okay? Our thinking and memory processes happen. Now it happens all over, but this is important. Now, the selfer, the posterior, where it says posterior cingulate, but the selfer, what this does is it adds the sense of self to the emotionally relevant memory, okay? It adds the story to the fearful event that happens, and I'm going to talk about that. And then you're going to notice there's a fourth structure. It's the evaluator. So it picks up on, oh, there's something stressful going on. So I just want you to notice how, look at how all over the brain, okay, this is going on in our brain without us even knowing it. These are where these structures are, but you notice that where the memory is created and where the fear response gets triggered are very close together. And we have two areas that actually give it meaning and create the story. So this is important. So I just want to give you the visual. So here's the process that happens to us. This is how the loop works. The emoter generates the fear response. The memorizer stores the fearful event in the memory. Then the selfer generates the fearful event with the self. Okay, so you attach yourself to the fearful memory. Then the evaluator adds meaning to that fearful event and replays it over and over again, which then creates another fearful response, which then gets reinforced in the memory and then gets reinforced into the, oh, that happened to me, then gets more meaningful, which creates the response. So as the loop continues, the memory gets stronger and the response gets stronger. And this is how the loop begins. So, an example. When we think about caregiving and what's happening, a lot of these fears and fearful events can happen with what if concern. Okay? So, say for example, you have a conversation with the Lynn and you've met your care coordinator and they're talking about long-term care and they're giving you tons of information and it's overwhelming. And you get told things that are not quite clear or you don't quite understand. And all of a sudden you feel fear because there's lots of uncertainty. You store that uncertainty as a memory because you've got a lot to think about. And it very much is about you. Okay. And it's very meaningful. And you just keep looping that because it is a very scary place to be. And it just loops. And it becomes the what if I don't? What if I don't get help? What if I'm dealing with a situation where when I do need the help, I don't get it? What if they say no? What if, what if, what if? And this gets reinforced. And as things change, and as things, and say, there's not more clarification, and you feel alone, and you're not sure what to do, that fear just keeps going and going, and you don't know what to do, and you feel alone. So again, you're creating the narrative, you're creating the story, and you're just reinforcing that story. And what's not happening is that prefrontal cortex isn't on, that thinking brain isn't on telling you that there are options, there are choices. I can talk to someone, I can ask someone else for help, I can do other things. I might have choices and options. things might be different. I may be able to actually do something about this. But when we get caught in the fear, we shut off the ability to think of alternatives, to use our instincts, to trust our gut, to know that we can ask for help and that there's options and choices. And so this can also work. I'm working with someone who has a difficult time regulating her emotions because she's so burnt out. And she gets caught in this event every time. So when she's had a really unfortunate experience with the hospital, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. And so every time her partner goes to the hospital, she gets a really bad response. And this triggers her into this, why do they treat me this way? And this is, what am I doing wrong? And so she gets locked into this place of, I'm a bad person, I must be doing this wrong. And this needing gets reinforced, and this fear of sending her husband to the hospital when he really needs to go. And so she gets so broken down and fearful that she isolates herself and then needs someone to bring her out of that, because it's like, I need you to understand that there are options and choices. But when she gets locked in this fearful event, the prefrontal cortex can't hear and process that there are options and choices and alternatives to help her. And she beats herself up. Okay? And so a lot of this happening, this could be a fearful event is your loved one falls. Fear response, oh my, what if he falls again? What if I'm not there? So again, and then you get locked in the fear. And you walk around with this persistent chronic fear of having to shadow. And so again, these are the fearful events. And then you build up this chronic stress, not being able to get down to a place of rest, and you're making yourself not able to. Am I kind of touching on some examples of this is the idea of that? So this is how the loop works. So what we've created is the vicious cycle. And this is not good, as I've said, because you got to break it in order to bring your body back, to get to a problem-solving sort of relief place. Because you can't stay here and be well, right? Because we know that this is not healthy, but it just feels horrible. And I can imagine that you know that without me telling you. So how do we break this? So this is a really busy slide. So everybody take a breath. It's all good. I want you to pay attention to the left-hand side, because this is how we break the chronic, the vicious cycle. So the 4 circles represent 5 different brain regions that work together to deactivate what we call the default mode network, or what I call the instant reaction to fear and anxiety and stress. So it's called the dorsal attention network, but we're going to call it DAN for short. And what it does is it shuts down the parasympathetic nervous system that's just constantly going on in your body, and it reactivates the parasympathetic nervous system to help the body and the mind achieve balance and rest. So you'll notice inside the green circle, there are 2 regions, and those 2 regions, the director and the attender, are getting you to go, okay, we got to take control, people, and we got to pay attention. That's focus. Okay. Um, and what they do, what the director and the attender do, is they get you to pay attention and they communicate with the regions um, that get us to notice how our body is feeling. Okay. And then they get us to pay attention to our senses. And then they get us to communicate with our heart and lungs. Okay. These regions all work together to calm the body to rest. Okay. So we start breathing and getting the blood flowing. We do a body scan. We go, wait, where am I feeling the stress? Okay. Some of us feel it in our chest. Some of us feel it in our head. Some of us feel it in our stomach. It all depends. You want to scan and go, where am I? Oh my goodness, I'm all tense. And sometimes we need to go for a walk or we need to get up or move around. So in order to deactivate this, how do we do this consciously? How do we go, wait a second, I gotta stop. We do this by two methods, okay? Breathing and pausing. So, as simple as this sounds, it can work, okay? And I know people will say, I breathe all the time, so I really shouldn't be stressed. That's not true. Because if you put your hand on your chest, what you might notice is that you're not breathing very deeply. So I pay attention when I'm working with people, and I notice that I don't see their chest rising very high because they're shallow breathing. And so sometimes when I'm working with people, I'll start deep breathing, like taking a nice deep breath. And sometimes if people start to mirror me, they'll start taking a deep breath and I'll see their shoulders go down. Okay. Because you really need to recognize you're not breathing deep enough to move your diaphragm. You're only breathing deep enough to get it in to here. And deep breathing is what activates to your comfort level, of course, because if you have pulmonary issues, you don't want to, cause any distress. But you want to breathe deep enough to get more oxygen into your system. And this actually works. There is research that shows that breathing will activate the DAN. Okay, we're going to call it the DAN. It will activate the DAN. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. So when you are overwhelmed, not in a threatening situation, but experiencing chronic stress, you can begin with slow and deep breaths to begin to activate the DAN and deactivate that vicious cycle. By focusing on breathing, you are waking up the DAN and allowing the prefrontal cortex to engage in taking charge of the situation and communicating with the rest of your brain to help change the fear-based emotional narratives that may be driving your perceptions, okay? And your feelings and your concerns and your anxieties. So what deep breathing does is it wakes up those areas to go, wait a second. I'm in stress. It would be helpful if I calm down. Okay. I need to pause. And so, as you can see, pause is an acronym. Pay attention, understand, and use sensory experiences. You want to take time to slow down, evaluate your surroundings, and get grounded. Am I really in danger? Okay. So now if you're really in danger, you want to be reacting and letting your body do what it needs to do. But when you're not, and you're thinking and ruminating and having that chronic stress, you want to be pausing instead. Okay. So, if your loved one is wanting to leave the house and it's not safe to do so, you need to have a response and intervene. But if you're sitting and worrying, what you want to do is be deep breathing and pausing, because that's a different way of responding to the concerns you're having, okay? And the worries you're having, because they're real. That's not the issue, but it's a different approach. So what we do is we scan our body and we figure out, where am I feeling this? Okay? Because that's going to tell you where you need to pay attention. It's the idea of just paying attention to you and getting back into your body, because we can go off and just be gone. We could have literally no awareness of what our body's doing and need to just get back into that body. Do a body scan. Where am I feeling uncomfortable? Where am I feeling stressed? And just pay attention to that. Pay attention to your surroundings. You know, get grounded. Just go, okay, I see 5 things. I'm touching 4 things. I'm here. I'm safe. I'm okay. Just getting aware of what you're feeling and thinking. And the idea is that you want to just give yourself a break and just listen to what's going on inside your head and be aware of, okay, what am I thinking? What am I telling myself? What am I, and not everyone's journals, but I've got this dilemma. I'm feeling these things. I'm not happy. This isn't good. So what do I need to do for me? And where do I need to go and get some support? Do I need to call my client support coordinator and just have a conversation and talk this out? Because I'm feeling stressed. This is important because you're not meant to figure this out alone. This isn't, do I need to talk to my doctor? Do I need to talk to someone? Because it just brings you back to go, okay, what is it that I'm getting stressed about? Let me just identify and recognize what this is about, okay? And if it's concrete, where am I going to get help for this? And who am I talking to about this? Because you're not meant to figure this out alone. So the pause helps you get back into your body, wake up that thinking part of your brain to go, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to get this? So I'll give you an example, a silly example, but it's a good example. I was at work. I opened up an email. I read it. I got angry. I got furious. And the story I told myself was, how dare they tell me that? That's horrible. These people are ungrateful. I can't believe. I was angry. I was angry. I was fit to be tied. So then I went, nope, pause. Did some deep breathing. I went, you know what? I'm too angry. I'm too angry. I can't do this right now. I can't respond to this email. I'm going to take some deep breath. I'm going to go for a walk, make a cup of tea. I'll come back. I go make my tea, go for a walk. I calm down. I do a few things at my desk, and then I open up the email again. And guess what? It wasn't addressed to me. I was just CC'd on the email. And then I go, oh, oops. So good thing I didn't respond in my anger. And I realized, wow, boy, did I ever get angry about that. What's that about? And so it gave me an opportunity to go, Emery, you might want to look into why you got so angry about that. And so I ended up doing my own little kind of, wow, you got some work to do. And doing my own little journaling about that. But that pause right? Prevented me from having to apologize for doing a nasty email. But it also made me go, wait, I really wasn't paying attention when I had that reaction. Okay. And I went, oh, okay. And then I noticed like my face went red, flush. I was like, and I was like, oh, that's not good. That's not good. That's not healthy, you know, and that's not my best self. That's not who I want to be. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pause. But I was gentle with myself. So this is what I would tell you. The more you do this, the more you practice deep breathing and pause, the easier it is to use when you have a stress moment. You are training your brain to use a different strategy to cope and manage stress. But it is a practice, and there is no expectation that it works perfectly every time right away. I encourage you to be kind to yourself and to recognize that this may be a new strategy that feels weird. It feels weird. I literally have stickies around that say pause. Pause. So when my son walks in and does something that upsets me, I just go pause. Don't yell. Pause. And it takes time to get comfortable with. The good news is it's free and it can be done anywhere. You can walk into a room, you can pause. If you need to kind of smash a pillow on the bed or, you know, feverishly fold towels or do something to get your energy out, go for a walk, you can do these things. You don't necessarily have to figure it out, but you need to again, you need to pay attention. What do I need to do? I'm feeling things. Do I need to kind of get the energy out? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to do something to just release this energy so that I can get back to what's going on? What do I need to do to help myself, to be kind to myself so that I can address what's really stressing me out? Okay. So in pause, it enables us to reflect, consider, and observe whatever the mind is grasping onto in a particular moment. A story, a belief, a justification, a fear, a reaction, an avoidance, a distraction. When we pause in the midst of a reaction, we drain the energy out of the old patterns. So when we're dealing with chronic stress and stress reactions that are not helpful, we want to save our health for when there is a real situation when our bodies and mind really need to respond. So instead of white knuckling it and burning out, I hope that you can find support to talk with whomever those people are in your life that you trust and feel safe with. I hope you reach out to the Alzheimer's Society. I hope you reach out to those people in your community that can help you, your family, your friends, on how to find ways to really alleviate your stress. It is so, so important, as are you. Thank you. And remember to breathe. Oh, perfect.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anthony. That was a great presentation. Do you want to take some time now to just address any questions at all?
All right.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the group? Or
I think I've been going through the chronic stress for weeks.
Yeah, it's very common. It's an epidemic, I would say. Yeah.
And I think it crashed.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't even walk.
Yeah.
I was so dizzy, I could not walk. So I'm still trying to work it through. There's been a lot going on.
What are the chats?
Any other questions or comments, or anyone else want to share?
Thank you, Karen.
Right. She was talking to it. So.
Katie has a question for you there, Anne.
Yeah, go for it.
Actually, more just comments. I thank you very much. That was incredibly well done, super well explained. I was constantly doing screenshots of your screen that you put up. It does really make a lot of sense, and it brought it back into the forefront again, how to do those strategies and a calm activity. It's almost, I think, some of it might be the mindfulness aspect as well, to just take get a grip. I know sometimes when I would be upset, I would start to clean, but I'd clean furiously. And I don't think I was relieving my stress. I'm building it, because the faster I go, the angrier I get. And that wasn't, it would have been far better to just go outside and take a walk, take that breathe, back to the old count to 10 when you say pause too. I always used to say, well, count to 10 before you react, or sometimes emails, give it the 24-hour, like wait, read it again tomorrow kind of thing. But your explanation was phenomenal. I was madly taking notes as well, because that's my best way to absorb what you're saying as well. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So the next session that I'll be doing next month is on self-compassion. So this speaks to also what may be helpful for you, Karen, as well, is that it sort of is the follow-up to talking about, so now that people can appreciate how stress is so complex and how it's a part of our reality.
Yes.
And now that we understand how it works, I'll be talking about self-compassion and the importance of being kind to ourselves in order to be more effective and more helpful to others. But also too, that when I talked about the narrative, so how when we get into stress and we attach that stress to ourselves and we develop those stories of what that stress means, I'll be talking about how we tell it, we can rewrite those stories of what the stress means. And in those rewriting of the stories, we rewrite kinder stories. And we tell ourselves, you know, that it's not our fault, that this is part of the human condition, and that we can do different things, which is why we want to calm the stress and make different choices. It's hard to do. It's really, really hard to do. And it's a training, it's a practice. I just got to sit down and breathe and give myself an opportunity, like go for a walk, just take a moment. And again, you can do it for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes to go, it's okay that I'm stressed. It's understandable why I'm stressed.
Yeah.
This is hard. And I'm just going to take 5 minutes and have a cup of tea. I'm going to be gentle with myself. And then I'm going to just go at it again. So this is what I'll be talking about at the next session. But it begins with the breath. It begins with the pause, so that we just go, okay, wait a second. We got to just take a break. But how hard is that to do, right?
Very. Very hard.
Exactly.
I've been on that circle for so long, I don't know how to get out of it. And of course, I can see what Katie had said, because what I do, I've got so much to do that I need to do this and I need to do that. And then you go at that where you don't even have the energy to do it, but you go at it and you just get more and more and more exhausted.
Yeah. So, and I imagine that other people on the call, on the Zoom here can relate to that piece where we just keep spinning and spinning, but we actually have to stop spinning and breathe so that we can reorganize and go, wait a second.
Yeah.
But we'll be working on these and providing, like, I'll be talking about that again. But the first thing we do is we breathe and we just go, hey, whoa, I gotta pause. But that, like I said, it's not easy, but it's totally important to do, right?
Yeah. The heart is great.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that in the Minds in Motion program that my husband and I join in, on Mondays there's a chair yoga section to it. And that's all about deep breathing and just
nice.
mindfulness and
Yeah.
that type of thing. And those techniques would fit right in with your strategies that you were talking about. It's and it's amazing how wonderful everybody feels after Jan's workout first, and then the yoga afterwards. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Nancy. Yeah. So many therapeutic benefits, right?
Absolutely. And I still, like at night, sometimes I'll do the deep breathing and the emotions and that type of thing and the meditation. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So good to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, I wanted to give Anne-Marie just some immediate kind of feedback. I do have a poll that if you'd like to participate in, there's 3 questions in front of you on your screen. And I'd just like to give you a few moments to kind of answer the questions based on how you felt about the session today. So the first question is, I enjoyed participating in this Zoom session on the impact of stress in cognition and mood. The second question is, this education topic was helpful to my learning. And the third is that I enjoyed participating in this Zoom online education format. And you can range your answers from strongly agree to strongly disagree. I'll just give you a few moments, and then Anne will kind of have that feedback, how you felt this was helpful for your learning.
I think one thing it did as well was to provide a validation for what's going on in your mind, to see it is actually a psychological, which leads to a physiological response, and it's there. It's not, we're just incapable of handling it. It's all a process, and the cycle gets pretty heavy duty. And so to try to unlearn or adapt to that cycle, or make those changes. But anyhow, it did put it definitely there.
So I'm just going to share the results of the poll with everyone, just so you. So it's really lovely to see that many of you enjoyed participating in Anne's session today, and that it was helpful to your learning. And it's really also nice to see that you enjoy participating in this Zoom format. I know it's not the same as being face-to-face in person, but I do think as time goes on, we're getting a little bit more comfortable with this online format. So thank you, everybody, for that great feedback. Anne, was that helpful? Were you able to see?
Yeah, I got to see it. That's great. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I certainly appreciate everyone's participation in that poll. Any final questions or thoughts today from anyone? Well, I just hope. Sorry, Joan.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Just a comment. I really, truly feel empathy for those of you going through that stress. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
And it's like being on red alert all the time. So
Yeah.
how to break that circle is really important. So I think that's a great thing you've taught us. And I remember my doctor saying at the time, who was really good through our journey, that self-care in any ways you can do something for yourself and look after yourself is truly important, because if you break down, and we saw that breakdown curve, the wheels fall off the cart. So I wish you empathy in your journey, and it gets better.
Good. That's good to hear, because right now I'm having trouble getting off that cycle.
Yeah.
But I'm dealing with a sick husband, a dementia mother, and an aunt.
Wow.
So it's just that vicious cycle that I can't seem to get out of. And yet I've got so much to do, constantly on the go, but not really getting what I need to be accomplished done.
Yeah. Understandable. Yeah. Wow.
I'd like to add, when in doubt, go to the Society's 10 Commandment card. You know what that is, Sarah?
I do, Ron. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about it?
I don't have it right.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
I'll leave it with the professional.
So in the past, we've used a little a pocket card to remind care providers and caregivers, you know, how to kind of address the stress, but also how to treat themselves kindly, and to remember some key facts about the person with dementia and the challenges that they're facing. So Ron calls them the 10 Commandments. I forget the actual name of it, but it's basically the most 10 positive interactions and strategies that we can use, and it's helpful to remember those and to reflect on those, and kind of, you know, going back to what Anne said today, it's such a positive thing to remember your breathing, to remember that pause when we are faced with those particularly stressful situations. And please know that you can call your client support coordinator at the Alzheimer's Society anytime. I know that this is a particularly stressful time for many of you, but you are not alone. I know we're distanced, we're, you know, physically and socially distanced a little bit these days, but your client support coordinator is there for you, and we're also there for you if you have questions. You know, Anne-Marie, Shelby, and myself. Please don't forget that, because we don't want you to feel alone in what you're going through and what you're, you know, experiencing challenges with, because there's lots of resources and support that hopefully can lend that extra encouragement and comfort to you during those difficult times. So remember, we're here, and when you're having a bad day and you just need to talk to somebody, you know where to find us. So we hope you will.
Sarah, just one more thing. The one thing that helped me with this was you guys putting them on the YouTube or the site. I can watch them when, because I work during the day, so I was missing out. But to go back and review, if you find one of the things that you're having a tough time with, you just pick that one and watch it again. And it just, some of the tips or strategies that you guys have provided are right there for your viewing pleasure. And plus, it also makes you feel part of a community. Even though it's not live, you go back and you go, okay, I'm not in this alone. So we will get this together. We'll go together through this somehow and get through this. Hopefully we can help each other. Whatever you guys are sharing with, you certainly understand that you're not the only one going down this journey. So thank you very much for those.
Thank you. That's super, Lori, that you said that. And yes, that's a really good reminder that all of the education sessions that we've been doing online have been posted on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and you enter in Alzheimer's Society of PKLNH, because we couldn't our society name is so long we couldn't fit all the characters, right?
Yeah.
Also, if you visit our website and you click on the video resources section, all of those videos are posted there as well. So there's a couple of different places. If you forget and need to know, just send us an email. We're happy to share the links with you. And I've been checking in on them every time I go and upload the new ones. I'm so pleased to see that there are more and more views all the time. So people are really being able to access them. And I know it's not necessarily the same as participating in person, but Lori, like you said, there's many folks that are working during the day or that they can't watch it at that particular time. And so it's nice to know that those resources are there to support you. And I'm a big believer in, I watch it once and then I watch it again and I pick up something completely different, or it just resonates with me in a different way. So, so thank you for mentioning that, Lori. That's really important.
Thank you, guys.
All right, everyone. Well, I'm looking at the time. We're over our time. It always seems to go so quickly. And I do hope, I think many of you are also signed up for our next session next Tuesday as well. So we'll look forward to seeing you again. And again, thank you so much, Anne-Marie Peters, for a wonderful presentation today.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know my love of understanding the brain and how things work. So that was amazing for me. And I think everybody really enjoyed the information that you brought forward today.
Yeah.
So thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
Okay, well, thank you. And that was a lot of fun. And I hope you all take care of yourselves and do the best you can. And remember, if you need support, give us a call. Okay? Please.
Thanks, everyone. We hope to see you again soon. Be well and take care.
Thank you.
Bye.